Today I am going to show you how to import and organize your photos in Lightroom Classic. One of the best practices you can have as a photographer is order and organization. You take a lot of pictures for different clients and even for your personal projects. What happens if you need to get back to a client's photo on request for a session that you did at the beginning of the year? How easy would you get that image? Now, Lightroom was created for this. You can organize your images as much as you desire to make your work efficient. Now, in this video, I'll show you my Lightroom workflow that includes creating a catalog, importing images, adding copyright information for protection to your images, organizing pictures into subfolders for even more and fine-tuned organization, and using smart collections for even higher levels of organization. So the first step in this whole process is creating a catalog where you're going to import your images. Now, I assume maybe you're doing different genres of photography, so there are two ways of doing it. The first step is, first of all, creating folders. So let's see how we do that. So I go to my Finder, and I've already created a folder for this tutorial. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to that specific folder, which is Photo Launch in Lightroom Tutorial. This is where I'm going to create all those folders. So the first folder I'm going to create is for a new folder for weddings. And I'm going to name it Weddings. Then I'm going to create another one for portraits. Remember, we are doing weddings and portraits in this tutorial. Portraits. And the third thing I'm going to create is a catalog folder. So the reason why I'm creating a catalog folder is because there are other files that Lightroom creates as part of your support data for catalog, that if you just do them on this folder, they will be so messy. So what I do is that I create a whole folder for the catalog so that every other data that is created or cache files that are created, they are in that one folder. So I'll create another folder for catalog. So once that is done, then I can go back to Lightroom. So once you open Lightroom, if you have another catalog, it will open that catalog first. But for now, we are creating a new catalog. And to create a new catalog, you go to the top left, File, then go to New Catalog. So once it opens, you have to choose where you want the catalog to be. So we have created a folder on our hard drive that is Photo Launch Lightroom Tutorials. And the folder we've just created for catalog, that's where we will put it, so that we click there. So how do we label our catalog? So it depends on you. You can create catalog depending on your genres, for example, weddings 2022 or portraits 2022. But for me, I like creating one catalog for the entire year. So how I do it is that I use the year, for example, year 2022, and all my pictures, whether it's wedding, portraits, events, are in that one catalog. So right now I am creating a catalog and I'm calling it year 2022. So once you've opened your catalog, the first thing you need to do is import your images. So how do you import your images? There are two ways to import your images. On the left panel here, you can go and click Import Images and go to the folder, but also you can just drag images here. So I'm going to choose the option of dragging the images. So I'm going to go to my folder where I have kept the images. So remember, I've selected 4 shoots. So they're in pictures and have labeled them as Photo Launchers Tutorial Pictures. These are shoots that I have already done. So I'm going to take the wedding for Steve and Sue, and this is what I'm going to import. So I'm going to do Control A, that is selecting all of them, and drag these images to Lightroom. Let me talk to you about the 4 ways of importing. So on the top of the screen, you can see there is copy as DNG, copy, move, and add. So let us understand this first. So copy as DNG means that if you're importing the images, they will be converted to DNG file. Now, DNG file is a non-proprietary raw file type that is universal. It's good to understand what is a proprietary raw file. For example, if you're using a Canon, you understand CR2 or CR3, depending on the model. Now, CR2 or CR3 are proprietary raw files for Canon. NEF is a proprietary raw file for Nikon. And ARW is a proprietary raw file for Sony. So for this one is DNG, is non-proprietary, no one owns it, so it's a universal use. Copy means that it will just copy but not converting them into DNG, meaning it will retain the raw file type for your camera. Now move means it will move, moving the images from your SD card or from your hard drive where you have selected the images and move them to the new location which you have selected in Lightroom. And add means it's just adding images to your catalog. For here, I'm going to copy the images. So I'm going to copy these images, but this is where we go to the next step, and the next step is adding copyright information. We go to our panel on the right, and you can find apply during import. So apply during import, we can come here and add metadata. So we can edit or have a new preset. So this new preset, this is where we do our copywriting material. So we will write photo launch copyright. You can have this copyright as your own name, for example, Njoroge Jonathan copyright, or whoever you are copyright, or your business copyright. So, and then you go down, you ignore all these things, and you go directly into this copyright. So this is where you put the copyright material. So you have to select it, make sure that you select it, and then the copyright material. You're going to go to IPTC copyright, make sure that it's checked blue. And once you do that, you put your copyright. So for me, I want this copyright to be Njoroge Jonathan, and I want the copyright to be copyrighted. I want all those images to be copyrighted. So the terms and conditions, I will not put the terms and conditions for usage, but I'll just put our website, which is the Joy Creative. This is our wedding website. So I'm going to put our joycreative.com. So once you do that, you just create. Now, and when you are importing, you make sure that you select. You see, I have my own preset here, Njoroge Jonathan, but for now we are using photo launch copyright. So once that is done, that's how you do it. So the next thing we need to do is define the date during import. For example, the destination. So for me, I'm going to select the folder where I want the pictures to be. So I'm going to come to my folder, which is photo launch Lightroom tutorials. And remember, we created weddings folders, portrait folders, and our catalog. So this is a wedding. So I'm going to put it under wedding. I'm going to organize these images by date. You come to this panel and organize by date, and then you choose a date that you prefer. To me, I prefer this one. It will automatically create that folder. Now I want to select all these images, and when I select all these images, that's how they are going to be imported. After that is done, then we are going to import the images. Now we have already imported the wedding images. Let us use another genre of photography, like portraits. So let's use the same process to import those images. And what you are going to do is that I'm going to click import, and when I click import, it is going to open the import catalog. It's the same procedure. So I'm going to go to my finder, and I'm going to do photo in Lightroom, and I'm decided to import, for example, Garana. So I'm going to take the pictures that are in Garana, and I'm going to drag them. So for these images, I would want the copyright material to be mine, that is Njoroge Jonathan. So I'm going to add the copyright material. I don't want to rename these images. I want to rename them during export, so I'll uncheck the rename files. And once that is done, I'm going now to go and give a command on where I want it to be. So I want them to be in portraits folder. So you can check the hard drive, photo launch Lightroom tutorials in the portrait folder, and I want them to be named by date. So once that is done, I'm going to just click import. So once you really understand this process, it becomes very easy to import because you have a workflow. So we go now to the next step, which we start organizing. And the first thing of organizing is renaming. Now, as you can see on our left panel, you can see local disk G. There are two files that you have just imported, but then you can only see them by date. So if you leave them like this, you would not know which product it is. So the next thing we do is that we like renaming these images. So for example, I will right click and I will go to rename. And what I will just do, I will retain the date, but I will just add the name of the client. So the name of the client is Steve and Sue. That's how I do it. And then I will save it. I will then go to this other folder and do the same thing, right click. Once I right click, I'm going to go to rename, and then I'm going to add a suffix or the name of the client. And for this is Garana. So, and then I save. Any change that I make here, it also happens on the drive itself. That's the beauty of Lightroom. So any change that I do on my left panel, it affects it on the drive. Now let me show you. You can right click and I will say show in Explorer, and you can see it has renamed it. This is how it has renamed it to 2021-11-28 Garana. The next thing is now you need to create subfolders for even better management. So for us, I'm starting with Steve and Sue wedding. It's the same thing. The first folder we create is create folder. You go to create, right click and go to create folder inside that folder, Sue and Steve and Sue. And once I create, the first folder I do is I create the capture folder. So the capture folder is the images as they were shot. So what I do is that I select all these images and then I drag them into the capture folder, and then I move them. So I move them from the original place and move them to the capture folder. So the second subfolder we create is called select, and we create the select folder. You can create enter or click create. So the reason why we create the select folder is because I would want to separate the selected pictures from the other pictures that are not selected. The third folder I want to create is PSD. So the reason why I create PSD files, so you PSD and you create, is because sometimes once you take a picture to Photoshop and bring it back, it comes with double folders, meaning there is the original folder and there's the PSD or the TIF folder created by Photoshop. So I would want those pictures to be in their own folder so that I can be able to refer to them anytime I want to do some more changes. And then the final folder I want to create is renders. You can call them renders or JPEGs, but I call them renders. So once I create renders, I have 4 folders as you can see. So inside this folder, there is the capture, selects, PSDs and renders. So then after we do that, we can now go into start editing. Let me go to the first step of my editing process, and it is selecting the images. Now, in our next video, I'm going to talk about filtering the images and selecting images in a deeper way, but I'm going just to do a very quick edit. So I'm going to go through these images, selecting the images that I really like, that I want them to be in the final edit. So how I'm going to do it is that I will use the pick tool. So the pick tool is P on your computer, is just P. And when I like a video, a picture, I just click P. So once I have selected those images, I'm going to go to attribute here, and then I'm going to select the images that I have flagged. And automatically it's going to narrow down to the images that I have picked, and picking is the same as flagging, and you use the shortcut P to do that. So once you click flag, these are the images that I am going to need. If you don't like a certain image and you want to remove it, like for example, you want to remove this image for the saxophonist, this one, I click U and it unpicks it. So now we have these images. There are around 14 images, and these are the images that I have selected. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to Control A, select all of them, and I'm going to move them to the select folder. Remember the select folder that we created? I'm going to move them to the select folder, and I'm going to move them. And moving them means I have removed them from the capture folder and I have moved them into the select folder. I want to show you how you can easily put images in PSD. So for example, let me take a picture that I would want maybe to do something in Photoshop. Let me pick this image, and I will just right click and edit in Photoshop. So I want the edits that I have done in Lightroom to remain. So I'm going to use it that way, and I'm going to click edit. For example, now this is the image, and I would want, for example, to do some edits in this, maybe remove some spots or such kind of a thing. But since we are not in a Photoshop editing here, I'm just going to do a drastic change. It has open camera raw, and I would want maybe to reduce the warmth of this image. So I think I have this freshly installed Photoshop. So I would want maybe to do some changes a little bit, cool it a little bit, and then put a bit of saturation maybe. Remember, we are not in a Photoshop editing tutorial here. So, and then I click OK. So what I'm going to do is that I am going to create a new layer, or maybe duplicate this. Control J, and what I'm going to do a drastic thing. So I'm going to draw something so that once we go back to Lightroom, we can be able to see the change. So I'm going to use the brush tool, then I'm going to change the color of the brush to a colorful one like red or maybe orange. Let's use orange. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw here like this so that you can see. In fact, the best thing is let me increase the size of the brush so that you can be able to see. So as you can see, I have just drawn the image. So sorry for spoiling the image. I just want it to be very visible when you go back to Lightroom. So once that is done, assuming I have finished editing this image, I just create Control S to save. Once that image is saved, it automatically appears back in Lightroom. And it automatically appears in Lightroom, and you can see it. It has already appeared in Lightroom. Here it is. And if we want to see it, we just click here, the eView, and there it is. You can easily see the changes that you have done in Photoshop. So I'm going to go back to grid view, and this image is either a PSD or a TIFF file. So what I want to do is that I want to separate it because all these are raw images, but this is a PSD file. So I'm going to drag it and move it into the PSD file. Search, and I'll move it, meaning it has moved from the selects, it has gone to the PSD. Now let's go to the renders. So how do we render these files and categorize them? So how I do them is that once I have decided that these are the images I want to edit and this is how I want it to be, what I will do is that I will select all those images and then I will create export. Once I click export, then it will automatically take me to the export dialog. And to the export dialog, this is where now you decide your export settings. So the first thing is that I want to select a specific folder. So I will choose the folder, and remember we created the folder called renders. So I'm going to go to the weddings and I'm going to Steve and Sue, and inside there is renders. So I'm going to put them into renders and select folder. Then I'm going to say put in a subfolder. Now remember, we are rendering in two phases. The first phase is high resolution, the second phase is an online gallery. So now I'm going to export high resolution. So this is called high res. I name them high res. And then what I'll do, this is where you rename. Remember, we did not rename during importing. This is where we rename them. So I rename to, and I call it Sue and Steve wedding. And the sequence is that I want all the numbers to be named in number form with a sequence from 1 to the last. And once I do that, I come here. Now, in this dialog box file testings, you need to export those images as JPEGs, because if you export as PSD, your clients will have to use an editing software to see the images. So you can use JPEG, and then because these are high-res images, they become 100 quality, highest quality. Then the resolution is 72. If you put 300, the images become a bit bigger in size. And then I want to sharpen for screen, and it's standard sharpening. It's just how I do it. And then I want my copyright information to be there. I don't want to watermark the images. Now for this, I can create a preset for this, and I just create add, and the preset I want to create is high res render. So, and I create. So every time I come, I will just create high res render, and it will create those settings for me. The only thing I will do is change the name of the images. So, and then I create export. So once that exporting, I will go again and create export. And this time around, I want to create images that for the online gallery. So I'm going to create a folder called online gallery, a subfolder. It's still in the same renders. So online gallery. And then I'm going to retain the naming of the folder, but then I'm going to reduce the quality to half, or around 55 to 60. This really significantly reduces the quality but retains the sharpness of the image, and the rest of the settings are still the same. And then I create export. But then remember, I want to create this as a preset, so I'm going to add a preset, and I'll name this preset online gallery. and I create. Now, the reason why I want us to understand creating of presets is because these small actions that you repeat over again takes a lot of time in the long run. For example, if in a week you're editing around 5 projects, and every time you have to create and come to do the settings again and all those things, it takes a lot of time. So anything that you can create a preset for, even for color, and we're going to talk about color in another Lightroom video, you can create presets for your colors, for your coloring, or for your editing, so that it can be very easy for you. So once that is done, make sure that you create presets for everything. It really cuts a lot of time from editing. Once that is done, I create export. And once we go into our folder, and once we go to Lightroom and we go to the wedding, Sue and Steve, we can be able to go to the renders and see it has literally created the high-res folder and the online gallery, and inside it are the different images in different sizes. So this one I'm going to send to the client via a flash drive. This one I'm going to send via PickTime, the one that we use for online gallery. Now, of course, on Lightroom, you can see here that it has not reflected the changes that have happened in the drive. Now, you can see in the drive, there are the different folders, but here they are not. So it's very simple. You just come here and click, and then you just update folder. No, you just do synchronize. So synchronize the folder and import new folders and scan metadata, and you create synchronize. So once the synchronization is done, you can see now the render file has updated, and inside the render file has 2 files. It has the high resolution files with 14 images and the online gallery with 14 images. Now let's get a bit deeper and talk about collections. Now collections are in 2 ways. There's the normal collections and the smart collections. So let's first of all start with the normal collections. I come here to collections, and there is this add plus button. I create. Now to do collections, how you need to understand collection is that you have to put collections inside a collection set, and then inside the collection set you create collections. So for me, I'm going to create a collection set that is called weddings. So remember, we have weddings, portraits, events. So I create a collection set called weddings. So I come to here and create collection set, and I'm going to name this weddings. Then inside the collection set, I'm going to create collections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come, and instead of creating collection set again, I'm going to create collection. So create collection, and then I'm going to name, for example, I want to categorize my images into the different parts of the day. So for example, I want to do the bride preps, and then I want this collection to be inside a collection set called weddings, so that it can be categorized there inside weddings. So create. So once you go to Steve and Sue, so how I do it is I go to the my selects. Remember my selects. When I go to my selects, these are the images that I have already edited. I just want to see the images that are in the bride preparation. For example, this is a bride preparation image. I hit Control. There's a bride prep image, and that's it. So those are the only bride preps image. So I'm going to drag those bride preps image into the bride preps, as so. Then I am going to go to the reception. So this is the reception. This is also the reception. All these are the receptions, and even this. So I'm going to select those 3 images, and I'm going to take them to the reception. So the reception. So now, if I want to access all the images that are in the reception, I'm just going to come into the collection settings, go to weddings, and then the reception. Now, this really works well when you want to cluster your images into events. But remember, if you're doing weddings, all the reception folder, the reception collection will have all the reception pictures for all the weddings that you have done. But for me, I don't use collection this way. So how I really use catalogs is using smart collections. So what I do is that I create a smart collection. So for example, the first smart collection I create is for images that I want to be on my website or social media. So I will just create a smart collection and name it online use, maybe for social and website. So for online use, it's social media or website. I want all images that are rated 5-star, greater or equal to 5-star, to be taken into the smart collection we have called the online one. So once I create, it has created a smart collection. So you can see this is a online use and it has 0 images. So how do I work in it? So I go to the select images. Once I'm selecting the images and as I am selecting and editing the images, I'm going to select some of the images that I really want them to be on social media. For example, I would like this image to be on social media. So I'm going to do 5-star on it, and I will click 5. I'll type 5, and then I'll like this image. It looks so nice. I would want it to be on social media, 5, and then I would like this image, which is this one, to be on social media also, and I'll click 5. So as I do that, you can see now our smart collection for online use has added 3 images. And when I click on it, the images that I have selected 5 stars have already been updated on my smart collection. Now, let me create another smart collection for even more understanding. So for smart collection, I had clicked a new smart collection, and I want this to be retouching. So there are images that I would want to retouch as I edit, but I do not want to retouch them immediately. I want to retouch them after I finish the rest of the images. So what I do is that I create retouching. Once I do that, I go to rating, and I rate all the pictures that I have labeled in color, and this is just my workflow I'm teaching you, is red. So what I do that all images that I want to retouch, I select, I color them with red. So once I create that, it has created another smart collection called retouching, and you can see it has 0 pictures. So when I go to my selects, what I'm going to do is that I would like to retouch some of these images, and the images that I'm retouching are images that are with faces. So what I'll do is that I will come to this image of Sue, and I will click number 6, which is the red shortcut. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are stars, and 6, 7, 8, 9 are colors. So 6 is red, so I have labeled it red, and you can see there is a red border on it. I also want to retouch this one with her friend, and one more, maybe this one. I want to remove spots on Sue's face, for example. And once that is done, you can see automatically once on the retouch collection, there is 3 images selected. When I click on it, is the images that we have already labeled or colored, coded them with red. So that's how you use smart collections. So this is how you can easily manage this thing. And if you have any more questions, you can ask them on my Instagram. You can go to photolaunchers.com and see what we are doing there. Also ask me a personal question at the Africa's Director, or leave a comment below and let me know what would you want more to understand about these things. So next time you're going to learn about the filtering and culling images in Photoshop, in Lightroom, the best method to do so that you can be able to have an efficient way of culling image. If you want to understand more about the business of photography, so make sure that you click on this video as we wait for the next video about culling and filtering. Cheers.